Hello everyone and welcome back to our latest episode of Community Insights. My name is Matt Conway and I'm the Communications Director for the City of Greenfield. There's always so much going on in our community, but one of the topics I'm really interested in learning more about, and it's also a topic that many in the community are interested in learning more about, is the work of our Assessors Department and the Board of Assessors. To talk about that, I have Jim Geisman, the Chair of the Board of Assessors, who's very much in the weeds of this work, and he's here to really help us learn more about what the board does. So thank you, Jim.
Well, thanks, Matt. Appreciate the airtime.
Yeah, no problem at all. And it's been a pleasure to really work with you and Chuck and Randy, because each of you has such passion for the work you do and are remarkably intelligent about this. And it's great to have this opportunity to share this with a wider audience. So thank you.
Well, thanks. And I hope it does reach a wide audience, because one of the issues that we, and I think we're not alone as assessors, people don't quite know or understand what we do, and they have a lot of misconceptions. Well, first of all, I'm glad you acknowledged my fellow board member, Chuck Green, and our chief assessor, Randy Austin. They are both great to work with. Randy is incredibly experienced and is incredibly service-oriented. I've been in the office when he's been talking to a resident, and he'll spend 10 or 15 minutes to make sure that the resident may not be happy with the answers, but feels that they've been heard.
Yeah.
I think, first of all, the board, which consists of 2 people right now, but with a charter change, it'll go to 3. I think we're unusual, at least that's what Randy says, unusual, not strange. And what makes us unusual is that we're extremely active.
Yeah.
Both of us provide a lot of analytic support to Randy, which makes his job easier, and it's just an intellectual challenge for us, and we enjoy doing it. With respect to what we do, I think people have a sense that the assessments, many people feel they're unfair, arbitrary, but frankly they're not. What our task is to make sure that all of the taxable property, which includes real estate, and personal property, which even though it's called personal, it's really mostly associated with businesses, that we have assessed that fairly and consistently. And the reason the valuation is so important is when you apply, the valuation is basically the denominator of the tax rate. The numerator, the thing on top of the tax rate, is the city's budget, or the part of the city's budget that is unfunded by outside sources, the state primarily. And when you come up with a tax rate, the tax rate times the total valuation of all property must be equal to that budget amount.
Yeah.
And the budget, people think, they wonder why their taxes are going up every year. And frankly, one of the reasons is that the budget goes up every year, and there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, even if we provided exactly the same services and there was no growth in any respect in Greenfield, the budget would still go up because of inflation and salaries. I think as I was talking about evaluations, they have to be consistent and uniform and based on an estimate of fair market value, full and fair market value. The way we do this is we have a system. It's called a CAMA system, a computer-aided mass appraisal system. Ours is called Patriot. Their name has changed to Catalyst. And the software captures information about buildings, It captures physical characteristics, a whole bunch of other characteristics, and then the data gets fed in, laid against tables, and out comes valuations. So it really isn't as arbitrary as people think it is. The other thing is there are some areas in valuations that are judgmental, but the judgment is bounded by the description of, for example, condition or grade. And you can, sort of, I wouldn't say play with, but you have the option, in fact, for example, in grade, you've got A, B, C, but then there's A minus, B plus, B minus, and in an attempt to be fair to the property owner. Yeah. So the tables and the mathematics spit out a number. In terms of what the board does, we basically provide oversight, and we meet twice a month typically. You can see our meetings when they're scheduled on the city calendar, and you can also see the minutes on our website.
Yep, and those meetings are bi-weekly, and they're 9:30 to 11:30 on Tuesdays.
Right.
And then for those who can't attend, they're all recorded and posted on GCTV. So
right.
Anyone has the opportunity to participate in what's going on with the assessing world.
Yeah, they can log into the Zoom call and be part of it. In fact, we have some very active residents who do that, and they're almost like a sub-board, as it were.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah,
well, it's
right.
good to have that kind of participation from the community. I mean,
Yeah.
civic engagement is really important.
Right.
But you mentioned misconceptions earlier. To you, what are some of the misconceptions do you think people could have about the work of the assessor's office?
Well, I think they think it's, it's just arbitrary, but as I say, it's not. And one of the ways you can confirm whether what we're doing is correct or not is to check something called the property record card. If you go on the assessor's website, there is a link to GIS and property records. I think that's the actual term. And if you click on that, you plug in the property address or the owner's name, or if you have a parcel number, you can do that too. And then what will pop up is a thumbnail sketch of the property and an option to select the CAI property record card or the Patriot record card. The Patriot record card is a detailed summary of all of the characteristics of, let's talk about residences, but it applies for any property. Mm-hmm. And what happens is people think that it's arbitrary, but it isn't. It's based on the data, and if you want to see what data we used, all you have to do is pull your property record card and take a look at both sides. Now, sometimes people don't have certain things that are on the property record card. How they got there, I don't know. That we're still trying to clean up a lot of mistakes from the past that were carried forward. But you need to check your property record card for accuracy, because it's the numbers on that property record card that determine what your valuation is going to be. And a lot of people just don't take the time or effort to do that, but I would encourage you to do that. People have also, I think, accused the board members of being able to go in and change values change valuations for either themselves or for friends. Mm-hmm. And that just ain't true. The board, even though we're sort of part of the assessor's function, we cannot touch this system, this software system we use for valuations. So, that accusation is incorrect. One of the things that I personally think is a good idea, and did it, at least for myself, is that anybody who's an elected official ought to have their property record cards. They ought to sign off on the accuracy of their property record cards, or the record cards of any properties in which they have an ownership, direct or indirect. But that is a conversation for another time.
Well, I think the community really appreciates the transparency you're bringing to the work of the assessors, because even from my perspective as someone who works with you guys often, it's very complicated topics. There's a lot of nuances to these things. So very much appreciate you breaking down some of the things that aren't always perceived accurately by the general public. But we talked a bit about property tax exemptions on one of my past Community Insight episodes. It's that season. I believe July is typically when they're announced, and then these months is really when we try to publicize it as much as possible and make sure that the people who can apply for these programs are applying and taking full advantage of that. So talk to me a bit about some of the tax exemption programs that are available that the community can utilize.
Sure. Well, there are several. I'd say that the greatest number of exemptions in terms of clauses, let's say, are the veteran exemptions. And they have to do with disability primarily. You also have elderly, and the elderly have lots of different exemptions. Disabled vets have some, and the surviving spouse or child, and folks that are blind. There's also a hardship exemption that allows people who are under stress to either defer their tax payments for a few years, or to actually defer them until their death or the sale of the house. We recently, first of all, we have not seen very many hardship cases, but up until recently, there was no written policy about how to administer hardship, and we've recently come up with a policy so that our judgments can be a little more uniform. But frankly, when it comes to hardship, the Board of Assessors and the Chief Assessor, they have the option to do whatever they want. They don't do whatever they want, but within some bounds. But there is nothing. There are no guidelines from the state, for example. So every assessor can do it differently, and we're trying to just make things a little more uniform.
And I think that's a great way to approach it. And I just want to emphasize for our audience that all the different background information about these exemptions, the applications themselves, are readily available on our website. And I will put the link in the description of this video for people to access if they're interested in learning more. And I know our assessor's office, which is open 8:30 to 5 Monday through Friday, is always happy to answer questions or walk people through the process as well. But I know you and Chuck and Randy have always been extremely busy, and this year has really been a great year of progress and a lot of proactive initiatives. So can you talk to me a bit about some of the new kind of Board of Assessor initiatives that are either taking place or coming into fruition in the future?
Yeah, sure. I guess I'm the culprit, but when I was elected a year and a half ago or whatever it was, up to that point there was never any assessor outreach. So I convinced people that maybe that was a good idea, and it has sort of blossomed. One thing we have is office hours. Talk to an assessor, and I do that the first Tuesday at the Greenfield Public Library. Chuck does it the last Tuesday at the John Zahn Center. Chuck, who has been doing this much longer than I have, several months, he does need to have appointments made through the the John Zahn Center. I am more, I just started that, my monthly sessions in September, and it's kind of lonely because people don't know about it and they haven't gotten used to it, but it's on a first come, first served basis, and when it gets more firmly established, I'll probably do appointments. In addition to that, Chuck put together what we call the tip line. One of the problems that we have here in town is, budgets, town budgets are constrained by Proposition 2.5. So in other words, whatever last year's budget was can't be raised more than 2.5%. And in order to meet the financial needs of the community, you go after new growth. And new growth is simply stuff that hasn't been taxed before, renovations, additions, new equipment for manufacturing companies that file what's called a form of list, which has to do with the personal property in use with their business. The tip line, Chuck put together this tip line where we've collected a whole bunch of properties. People have come to us and have said, gee, this property looks like it's doing a major renovation. Did they pull a permit? And what we have is a list of properties that we're taking a look at. And the permitting process is something that a lot of people try to game. And number one, it does a disservice to the city because we can't capture new growth. And a lot of the permitted stuff is new growth as opposed to maintenance, which we don't care about. When you start gaming the permitting system, number one, what you don't pay in taxes, other people do. Because you got to cover the budget. And it keeps your valuations artificially low, which I understand as a taxpayer that's a good thing. But it's not a good thing if you do the work yourself or you have some contractor doing the work and the permit is not closed and inspected. And one of the problems you have, especially if you're doing your own work, is you run the risk of having insurance problems. For example, if you were doing some wiring or some plumbing and then all of a sudden something fell off the track, the insurance company would say, let me see the permit, and when they see the permit wasn't closed and inspected, they may deny your claim. In addition to doing bad things to your neighbor by forcing them to pay more in taxes. The other thing we're doing, we've changed the website, thank you very much. It's still a work in process. I think it ought to be. But we also we're doing 2 workshops at GCC. We did one last night, which was the 9th, October 9th, and we're going to, that was via Zoom, and on the 23rd we're going to do an in-person workshop at GCC, and you can register for that by going to GCC's community engagement calendar, and there you'll see us. And I think that, towards the end of October, although we haven't set a date, what we want to do is have and Matt, you're the one that came up with the term, an assessors forum.
Yes.
Which is really an invitation to the public to come and not throw things at us, but throw questions at us or air their concerns, and give us a chance to really take the pulse of the community and answer questions. And we hope people will watch for that and attend it. And it's the assessor's work is incredibly complicated. I don't know why Randy's brain doesn't explode, but it hasn't so far. And the complication people don't generally appreciate, and frankly we try to keep them out of it because it gets to be just really complicated. Well, one thing I didn't mention last night, which I should mention here, is if you don't agree with your assessment, for whatever reason, and I know if it's low, you're probably not going to come to us, but we may come to you.
Yes.
But if it's high, you can always come to us and talk about it, and you can apply for an abatement. And in the event that we don't see eye to eye on the abatement, there is a higher authority you can go to, and that's the Appellate Tax Board. And we try to make sure that people may not like what they pay in taxes, but we hope they will understand why they're paying them and how much care and effort goes into calculating the valuation, which is part of the tax rate.
Yeah. And Jim, I just really want to say thank you again for coming on, and thank you to you and Randy and Chuck, who I really think are bringing a very forward-thinking approach to the work of the assessors. There's a lot of resources at your tool belt, and there's just a lot of information to learn. But I think the board and Randy's office as well has been extremely proactive about trying to make that as readily accessible to the community as possible, and really kind of break down some of the myths about assessing, or just some of the things that people might not understand all the way. I know even me, as someone who's been working with you and Randy for quite some time, there's still things I'm learning every day about it, and there's all these nuances, and I really hope people take a chance to check out the GCC forum, and also the forum we'll have sometime later this fall at the John Zahn Community Center.
Well,
but thank you again, Jim, for your time and your expertise.
You're welcome. It's a privilege serving the city.
Perfect. Thank you again for all those watching Community Insights. Check back at GCTV for the next episode. Have a good one.